interesting subject, actually.
Yeah, no worries. We're just about to go on air in 15 seconds, so we'll come to you in a couple minutes. Cheers, thank you. So, another win for England, 3 clean sheets in a row, into the quarterfinals, Dan. It's pretty marvellous, isn't it?
Yeah, and we weren't even really nervous of this one. I think tournament's gone by. At this stage we played like Colombia went to penalties, Germany in the Euros, then of course like Iceland, but Senegal was just fine.
Yeah, it kept them at arm's length all game, but I'm not sure how we're going to do that against Kylian Mbappe. He was looking pretty good last night.
I don't know how we're going to deal with him, but I've already given up baguettes.
Hello and welcome to Sera Qatar, a podcast produced and presented by sports journalism students live from the University of Central Lancashire. I'm Jack Goodwin.
And I'm Daniel Thomas. We'll be looking forward to today's World Cup knockout ties, including the views of a very excited Japanese fan.
Hi, I'm Sugi.
And Suki, I'm not sure, obviously Dan just said you're very excited. Are you more nervous for the game at 3 p.m?
No, I'm a bit nervous but more excited. I can't wait to watch.
Okay, we'll carry on chatting later. As usual, we're joined by our own sports journalism students who are...
Joe Stevenson, first year sports student at UCLan.
Jerry Moulton Kilo, second year sports journalist at UCLan.
And we're also delighted to be joined by former professional footballer Jamie Hoyland and one of UCLan's own Daily Mirror reporter Nathan Ridley, who graduated from the course a couple of years ago.
How are we both doing, guys?
Morning, gents. How are you all?
I'm good, thank you. And Jamie, how are you? Just come back to Jamie. Nathan, England are through to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Jude Bellingham in particular put in a brilliant performance. What did you think of the game?
I thought it was an interesting one. I think if Dia scores that chance and then Sarr takes his chance in that sort of opening half an hour, then it's a very different contest. And I think there was a bit of nervousness about England. I think when they go into these games where they are favourites but they're coming up against a good side, it can take them time to grow into the game. It wasn't too dissimilar to the Wales game, just that Senegal sort of had a bit more desire about them to get forward, and they seemed like they were really relishing the chance to get forward. But in the end, 2 great, really counter-attacking goals, orchestrated by Bellingham both. He was outstanding and such a mature performance. That's the sort of performance that you'd expect maybe a 30-year-old midfielder to wrestle hold of the game and think, right, I'm going to change this game and grab it by the scruff of the neck. But to do it so young just speaks volumes of him. And then the rest of the England stars, they really shone from him that they almost picked up. They took his lead. And I think it was, in the end, it looked a comfortable win. And the second half was almost a non-event, but it ended up being sort of the perfect game because England were tested, wasn't a walkover. But in the end, convincing, confident, no injuries, and on to France.
And Jamie, you've worked in academy football. Jude Bellingham, he's only 19. How can someone so young do so well and do so much on such a big stage?
We'll just go to you, Nathan. I think we're having a few technical issues with Jamie. I think we just can't seem to hear him at the moment. But yeah, Nathan, you kind of touched on it there, didn't you, with how good he is. And, a few years ago, I think a lot of us kind of mocked Birmingham City for retiring that number 22 shirt. But do you think they could just see the potential straight away?
Yeah, I mean, the club obviously has faith in him, local lad. His brother's there now, and obviously they'll be close with the family, and they knew how much of a prized asset they had on their hands. His meetings at Man United, the interest from other clubs, but to sell him to, a foreign country and a big club as well with expectation, he's done so well in Dortmund, and he's anyone who laughed at that, I suppose he's proved them wrong. But it's good to see faith like that in football. It's good to see little stuff like that because he's a Birmingham lad, and they will always be where his roots are. And that 22 shirt could well go down to be special. But I think Phil Foden put it best. It's good not to hype him up too much because obviously he is still young. he's got a lot of life ahead of him. Never mind football. He's 19. John Henderson was talking about. He's sort of putting his arm around him in the England camp. Conor Cody mentioned that Bellingham piped up the other day that his mum still does his bed and all these things. We forget these, and it's just been great to see him. And it's not a coming of age tournament because he's been doing excellently for 3 years in Germany, as a person and as to be vice captain and as a player. But this tournament, anybody who doesn't know him now does, and he's becoming a household name.
Yeah, and the win last night for England, I guess, was somewhat marred by the news of Raheem Sterling, that he was travelling home after his house was robbed. First of all, how big of a miss do you think he'll be? But also, does that kind of show the sort of closeness Gareth Southgate has to the squad, that on a day of such a big game, a big knockout game, he's allowing one of his star players to go back home to kind of look after his family?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it speaks volumes of how Southgate manages the squad. You'd like to think that every previous England manager would have done the same, because it's obviously such a really difficult personal circumstance. Obviously, Ben White's also left the squad with some personal issues, but for Raheem Sterling to get that news, on the phone, possibly through the middle of the night, to hear that something like that had happened, it must be really tough. And he's a staple of that squad, and everyone knows him. And his commitment to England, it's unwavering, because he's had a lot of criticism, but he's always someone who's been reliable, and he's become a senior player. He's taken younger players under his wing, and it's a real shame for him. But there's the chance that he could return to Qatar. Hopefully, he might not have to return for Saturday, and he can go on longer. But there is ample time for him potentially to come back. But the most important thing, and I'm sure Gareth Southgate is under no illusions, that as long as his family feel content, he feels fine, his loved ones do, then that is the main thing. Football very much secondary in that situation.
Okay, and do you think the winner of the World Cup will come from this game with England against France?
It's a difficult one to say, because I think that if either team win, then they will think they're obviously through to the semi-finals, and they'll obviously think, well, what can stop us winning it now? But Argentina, Spain, Brazil, I'll have something to say about that. I still think ahead of the tournament, obviously Brazil and Argentina were the leading favourites, because it almost felt like France looked like a recipe for disaster, as they've shown before in 2010, infamously, and 2002 also. And England themselves, that 6-game winless run, the negativity obviously here, and just the squad, and it just seemed like it was all caving in a little bit. But it's been brilliant to see that sort of both teams have put the outside noise behind them, and they're both performing. France maybe more excitingly than they were at this stage in Russia. They were sort of very conservative. There's a few criticisms of Deschamps, but this time they've been really excited, lots of goals. And the same for England, when everybody was a bit worried that Southgate would go super pragmatic. He's done very well, and both managers are experienced in getting far in tournaments. So I think from inside the camps, they will feel this quarter-final will be the sort of rubber stamping if they can go on to win the tournament. But I think there's a lot of football left to be played, a lot of time too, and I think that the mood could change. But both teams, I think, will believe that if they can win this quarter-final, then they stand a very good chance.
Yeah, and you touched on it before, Nathan, that Didier Deschamps has come under a lot of pressure, but like you said, they've looked like a lot more of an attacking outfit, which has been rare under Deschamps. And similarly, Gareth Southgate's had quite a lot of criticism come his way, fairly or unfairly. Do you think this is kind of a knockout game for the managers as well? Could we see the loser of this game kind of leave their post?
Yeah, I mean, Deschamps feels like more of a bit of a natural ending for him. I think his contract's up at the end of the tournament. Southgate has obviously got the following Euros. Again, like the last European Championships, the 18-month turnaround will probably save a lot of managers. I think that the fact that you've really only got, you've got this following summer, but by the end of next season, it's another tournament season. So the need for continuity can be a real positive. But I think the French players, they seem to get along with Deschamps, but will the same type of sort of core players still be there? Obviously, Kante and Pogba are out this time. Hugo Lloris, will he carry on? Or someone like Griezmann, who was excellent yesterday when he's had a lot of criticism over the past few years with Barcelona and returned to Atletico. He was brilliant in midfield. Giroud too. obviously he's like a fine wine, but will he carry on? And then the same for England. In a way, Harry Kane with his injury troubles, there's always a concern about him. Sterling sort of lost his place in the side. And then you've got this really young group that fans still don't believe that Southgate is getting the best out of. There's people can agree and disagree about that, but England might fancy a freshen up. Maybe a Thomas Tuchel or Pochettino will sort of take the FA's fancy. But I think both managers would like to say that whatever happens on Saturday, they deserve the Euros, with it being 18 months away and a bit of a chance to just end their international careers with their nations.
Yeah, and whilst you were just all saying that, Nathan, I believe Jamie has returned. We've been able to sort out the technical issues, and he was...
Peter Kay says, I'm back in the room.
Yeah, and you were vigorously shaking your head when he was saying that Southgate has come under criticism.
Well, he has, but how? I heard Nathan then saying, he's still not got the best out of this young group. How can you play them all? You have to have the only way you win is with a team. And that's what he's done. He's developed a team. And then he's sprinkled the best players in at the top, which wins you games. So Foden, Rashford, whoever, Sterling a little bit early doors, Saka, he does that. And then we're now talking about replacing him with Pochettino and Tuchel. That's our media. That's how we work. I think we've been brilliant. I think the last few the what's that conference thing they're playing? It don't matter about that. We've got relegated. So what? Don't matter. That's just another thing for UEFA to make some money on. The tournaments, we've come to a final, a semi-final, and now we're in a quarter-final. And it's like, oh, Southgate, he's poor. Because Southgate does not portray as what can I say? He's not. By the way, I do know him. I've played it, and I do know him personally, Gareth. But actually, when you know him, he's a different person. What he portrays into the media and the things, because it's like, oh, look at him. He's a typical FA man. Well, what you want? I don't know. What Tuchel? He goes places, lasts a year, upsets everybody, and do that. So he did that with players. Pochettino, how can we talk about these people getting England job when we're doing so well?
Obviously, Jamie, you've just kind of touched that you know Gareth Southgate. So how do you know Gareth, and what do you think he is like?
From playing against him, and also I work for the FA. I actually did do scouting for the FA before my job now. And he was an under-21 manager, and you couldn't wish to meet a more, and I see him when I go on courses down at St George's, a more engaging person. There's no ego. He'll talk to you. And he talks to everyone, like he'll talk to people, and it's like, what I don't know. I find it mind blowing sometimes, the press and the social media, and get him out. We go 1-0 down. It's get him out. Rubbish. We draw with USA, and it's like, replace him now. It's like, yeah. And then we have a walk in the park against Wales where we could have won, if they'd actually put the foot down, won 8-0. And then last night, everybody's moaning for the first 30 odd minutes on, oh, it's rubbish, this football. Look at it. We were just playing with them, knocking it over. And then, boom, we just go like that, because that's how football's played. You can't win it in first minute. And yet we're all worried about France and Mbappe, one player.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you touched on how pretty good we were yesterday, kind of, the first 30 minutes, kind of just keeping them at arm's length. There was one crucial save in that match from Jordan Pickford that I believe you know as well. I mean, what role is he got in that England squad, and how crucial is he to our chances of winning the World Cup?
I think Jordan, there's another one, like they all want Aaron Ramsdale or Nick Pope in the goal for England, yet he's never let England down, has he? And the save he made last night was fantastic. But as Roy Keane says, that's what he's there to do. He's a goalkeeper. He makes the save, and that's for us to win a tournament or go through to the next bit. We'll have to do that. On Saturday, he'll probably have saves to make, and he'll have to do them, and we'll go the other end, and we'll have chances to make, and we have to take them. But I think Jordan Pickford for England, has been superb. I think he's never really let anything down from the last 2 tournaments we've been in. He's been superb, and that's why Gareth, I think, sticks by him, because he don't let you down. He knows what he's doing, and he's an important goalkeeper because the lads who play in front of him trust him. And if you've got a back four what trust your goalkeeper, you've got a chance. So yeah, I mean, last night's save was brilliant, and I think that gave us a little bit of a right. Come on, we need to get going now, and then killed it off just before half time. But I thought last night, it was the most comfortable probably I've watched an England game for a long time, as probably everybody has. You know, once we got the third, it was like, yeah, no problem this now.
I'll put this one to both of you as well, because I was in the pub yesterday and we're kind of discussing when Gareth Southgate sits there writing his team sheet, who is the first name on the team sheet? Who is the one crucial player in this team, the key cog?
Harry Kane.
Go on, Nath. Yeah.
I mean, it's Kane. I mean, people have been clamouring for Callum Wilson to come on. And, I mean, against the US, people were saying, and against Wales too, were saying, well, one of these games we should rest him. And I really struggle with that idea, because all of a sudden he's, 1 minute, people sort of thinking that he can be sort of replaced and he's just a number 9 and you can just pop someone else in there. But then you realise it only takes 5 minutes of watching him that he's so important, playmaking, his leadership. I thought his attitude last night was excellent. I mean, there's been a lot of sort of big, I suppose maybe to do with the crowds and things, but when Brazil have won, when Argentina have won, France's scenes in the dressing room, it's this big sort of hoo-ha. But Harry Kane comes out very, pragmatic, diplomatic, just as the captain, not going over hype with the fans, just taking it steady. He's experienced. You know, he was part of that Euro 2016 team. He got beat against Iceland. He knows that things can come crashing down with England, and he's had criticism. I'm not sure how, because how good he's been, but Harry Kane is the first name on the team sheet, and he's the linchpin. I mean, Gareth Southgate didn't even take him off when he made 5 subs yesterday. His leadership on the pitch, his ability, people complain about him dropping in, and then his goal scoring. He scored last night, and all of a sudden now nobody's complaining about his output and things. He's irreplaceable. I think almost every player in the England team, there's a decent replacement, but no disrespect to Callum Wilson, but the biggest gulf would be for taking Kane out for Wilson. Every other player, I think, has a steady enough replacement.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. I thought they talk about him coming too deep, but last night he did that so well, and then it allows Bellingham then to run forward. He comes in there, drops in, I hate saying it, pockets, in actually just spaces on the pitch. And he goes deep, draws them in, and then you've got your midfield runners, and he does it so well. Holds onto the ball, and sometimes you think, just lay up. Oh, he's done it, and he flicks it, and they're in. And then his goal last night, I mean, yeah, I thought they've done brilliant for it. Foden's played him, and soon as he's had that touch, you're thinking, this is a goal, and he's hit that so well, and then finished the game. But like Nate said, he is so important, and I agree. You could go around the team, Kieran Trippier for Kyle Walker. On the other side, you could put Kyle Walker there for Lucio. Centre halves can be changed, midfield can be changed, but we need him at that focal point as centre forward. And they'll be thinking that France, as much as we're talking about Mbappe, and then all right, Dembele a little bit. Griezmann's coming into it, but I mean, I've seen him play live this season. Blooming out, you were like, wow, a shadow of the player. France will be looking at us thinking, right, we've got to stop Kane, we've got to stop Foden, we've got to stop Saka or Rashford, we've got to stop Bellingham, and there's a lot there to do. So it's the most. I mean, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great game, but I think it's one what we can certainly win, and then you just never know, really.
If we were to have to push you for a score prediction just before we wrap it up, what would you go for?
On Saturday?
Yeah.
2-1 England.
Keeping the faith, I like it.
Can you believe it? I won't be watching the game.
Why
I
not?
can't believe it. I've got tickets to watch Paul Heaton, who's my favourite, and it's Saturday in Manchester.
Are you gutted?
He's well, yes and no, because he's a massive Sheffield United fan, Paul Eaton, so he's got tickets for me, and like, I love going to see him. And actually, it might take away the nerves because he'll be on a bit later. Game kicks off at 7, so I might see a bit of that. But
Can you take your phone and watch the game?
I'm sure there'll be a bit on. I'm sure there's got to be a screen somewhere where it'll be. So yeah, I can't believe it. Quarter-final at World Cup, but then again, it's a perfect 10, and he does a little bit for me.
And what about you, Nathan?
Well, I'll be more concerned about Carlisle versus Barrow at 1 o'clock on Saturday, so I'll see how that ends up before the England game. But I mean, watching Poland yesterday, all of a sudden produced the best performance of their World Cup campaign against them. I think Gareth Southgate will be chuffed with that because I think from there he can see that France are vulnerable. But it's one of them. You have to hope Mbappe has an off day. He's probably impossible to stop. You could probably have Kyle Walker could have a brilliant game against him, but he could still score. I just think that with England, I think we saw that when they come up against a bit of an organised defence, and it has been proven that when you're playing against someone like Varane, and they're a bit more tournament savvy, France, and I just think, I think the key battle will be Bellingham against Tchouaméni in midfield. That'll be a big one, but whether Southgate sticks with, goes to a 5 at the back or sticks with a 4, they'll have a tough decision. But to even it out, I'll go 2-1 France after extra time. I just think it might be a step too far, and I just think France will edge them. But there's very little in the game.
Where's your patriotism? That's all I'm asking. You're young like me as well. We've only seen good England sides. Thanks for joining us both. Thanks for joining us both, guys. We've really enjoyed that. You were both brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers.
Pleasure, James.
See ya.
Cheers, Nate. Enjoy Carlisle.
I'll try to.
Struggle.
Yeah, my mate's manager, so say hello to Simo. All right.
Oh yeah, he's a top man. Hopefully we'll be 3 points better off next Saturday.
They need it dropping them on Saturday. Right, great stuff.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, lads.
Guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
So guys, we're back here in the studio with our sports journalism students. It's France in the quarterfinals for England. They steamrolled over Poland. It was pretty comfortable for France. Surely, well, are they the favourites in the game? We just heard a few score predictions. It's a real hard one to call, isn't it?
Obviously, I think we talking about the previous World Cup winner. So yes, they are favourite. They have to defend the title, and in that order, I think they will want people to know that okay, we won it last year, last World Cup, and now we might as well win it again. Look at us, we have so many strengths in the team. So I think it'll be a good game to watch, but they definitely are the favourite in that confrontation.
And we've kind of seen the last couple of days, all the big teams have gone through, all the favourites have gone through. Are they finally hitting their groove? Are they finally kind of, getting out of that second gear? They've kind of settled down in the group stage, and is that what we're expecting to see over the next 2 days as well?
Well, I think you've seen England last night, the most convincing performance, apart from Iran, but Senegal, much better team than Iran. France, Mbappe is looking like the best player at the tournament so far. He's top scorer, 9 goals in 2 World Cups at his age. That's unbelievable. Messi's looking good for Argentina. We're still yet to see Brazil, Portugal, so you've got all the big teams still really here, and it's getting interesting.
Is anyone better than England?
I would say the key for me, in my opinion, to win a World Cup is being strong defensively. In that order, the team that seems really consistent is Brazil, I would say. But at the same time, if they're not good, they cannot provide regularly goals. It will be hard for them as well. But with the potential offensive, you can think that goals will come. England is a good team, but I don't really see them as the best in the tournament right now. But once again, it's often the team that you don't see wins it or don't see look the best that generally win the tournament. So I don't see them as the best team in the tournament, but it's definitely a team to watch and a team that will eventually go far if they can beat France on Saturday.
And I tell you what's gone under the radar, and this is a really strange point to pick up on, but There's been 4 games now, so we've played 360 minutes of football plus, especially with that added time in that first game. There's been 0 yellow cards. That's pretty important for knockout football, for England to have 0 yellow cards.
Well, I think it just shows how much the players respect Southgate. They're not making stupid challenges, getting carried away with the tournament. They are staying disciplined. And that's obviously what Southgate wants. And I think it's a testament to him and his management style again, where we should be praising Southgate for how he set the team up. He's not afraid to start Saka when Rashford's had a man of the match game. He's not afraid to start Henderson after he came against some criticism against Wales. And I think we've just got to praise Southgate for how he's set the team up for that.
Okay, and we've got 2 games coming up today in the round of 16. Brazil against South Korea, but first, Japan are against Croatia. And we're delighted to be joined now by a Japanese student. So, Japan, they've been everyone's second team really throughout this World Cup. They've got the underdog stock wins against Germany and Spain, but also I think the way you leave the dressing room as well. I think that's got everyone's appreciation. Do you think you'll do well against Croatia this afternoon?
Yeah, I think so. It's gonna be same kind of match with against Spain and Germany. We need to build a block and drop back. Then we need to score 1 or 2 chances. Play against big team or stronger team.
No one expected you to get out of the group.
Yeah.
Everyone thought it was going to be Spain and Germany, and then you've somehow got 2 wins against Spain and Germany and lose against Costa Rica.
Yeah. It doesn't
What is
make
going
sense.
on?
It doesn't make sense. I didn't expect we're gonna win against Spain and Germany, then lost against Costa Rica. It doesn't make sense. I have no idea what happened.
Who do you think are the key players that we've got to kind of watch out for if Japan are going to progress any further?
There are some key players, but I think Tomiyasu is a key player, and Mitoma, Minamino, and Takefusa Kubo.
Well, you've just named 2 players, Tomiyasu and Minamino, that are quite well known in this country, obviously, throughout the times of playing in England. Neither of them have rarely played this World Cup, have they? I mean, they've spent quite a good time on the bench, and the manager, Hajime Moriyasu, has come under quite a lot of criticism beforehand for the way he likes to select his side, and it's been quite well known that he likes to pick runners and players that are going to run rather than skillful players. What are your thoughts on the manager?
Yeah, I'm not fan of him, to be fair, because he doesn't have a good tactics. He just, motivate players, then go on, just play, that's it. And while during the match, he just, making a note. I don't understand.
Well, it's clearly working.
Yeah.
Is it? So you get rid of the manager even after the 2 wins that they've got against Spain and Germany?
I don't think so. He gonna continue to manage Japan. It's so disappointing for me.
And guys, coming back to everyone really, Japan, Croatia, it's probably the most balanced side in the last 16. What are we thinking?
Well, I think that Japan, they obviously lose to Costa Rica, but they've beaten 2 of the big teams in this World Cup. I think that Croatia, though, are a hard team to beat. They haven't conceded in 2 matches. They didn't win, and they smashed Canada, putting 4 past them. So I think that, I'm sorry, Sugi, but I think this is where Japan's road to the World Cup ends.
Yeah, I will have to not agree there. Obviously, we all know the quality that Croatia got in the midfield, but other than that, they don't have any major player. I mean, I do think that Croatia will control the game, but because of it, they will lose automatically because they defensively they're not. They have Guardiola, obviously, who have a good tournament, but other than him, the other player haven't been really good. And we've seen that Japan, at the end of the game, that's where they really have this little plus to win the game. So, and because of it, I would say Japan will go through.
Right, okay. And obviously also today, it's Brazil, South Korea that are playing. South Korea have been pretty impressive, have shown that they're able to control games, they've beaten Portugal. And, Brazil losing against Cameroon, you're of Cameroonian descent, is it? Jerry, what do you think? Do you think South Korea a potential banana skin tie for Brazil?
Obviously, against that game, Brazil did a lot of rotation, so it's hard to pronounce. But I do think South Korea will pose Brazil will have problem to defeat Brazil, but at the end they will do it because the gap of the quality is just much bigger, and obviously in football everything can happen, but with such big gap of qualities, it's not likely to. So for it, I still see Brazil going through, as I pronounce them as my winner of the tournament.
Yeah, and coming back to you, Suki, in 2002, obviously when it was hosting Seoul, South Korea made the semi-finals, and obviously with yourself being Asian, how big is it for, and how important is it for the Asian side to do well for the people of the continent?
Yeah, to be fair, I don't remember at the moment because I was a child.
But how do you think they're feeling now after Japan and South Korea making the knockouts?
Yeah, it was great. It was so important. Most people think football in Asia is not good as much as European countries, but yeah, we showed our strongest.
Do you want to host a World Cup?
Yeah. I want to host World Cup, just in Japan.
Yeah,
they are good places, so we should host World Cup probably.
Yeah, because the 2030 is coming up, isn't it? And everyone's kind of throwing the names together. Portugal and Spain are with Ukraine, are they? And I think Saudi Arabia are going for one, and there's all sorts of countries. What are we thinking? Obviously, that's looking way ahead in the future. But Qatar's actually turned out to be, it's been quite an exciting tournament and quite a family-friendly tournament as well.
Well, I think for the first time ever as a start that there was more Asian teams in the last 16 than South American teams, which is a testament to how obviously Asia have improved at football. I think it would be great to see a World Cup in Japan. Massive demand over there, it's just growing and growing and growing, especially how well they're doing in this tournament. I mean, you hear in the fan zones in Qatar, all you hear are good things, Everyone's being generous, it's a great atmosphere, so I think the further football can spread, best for it.
Yeah, it's really nice when countries will say that where football is not, will say, as developed than it could be in Europe to host those kind of competition, because it makes the popularities of the sport grows, which is really important. And yeah, it definitely would be a nice thing is if Japan could have it, as Segi mentioned, for the last World Cup in Japan, we were all kind of children, so we don't have memories of it. So for it to have a good World Cup in Japan would be interesting.
And Jerry, obviously you're of Cameroon descent, but you're also Swiss.
Yeah.
And Switzerland have got a big game tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the game against Serbia was quite emotionally intense because all the background behind it. And now I think that maybe this game have unlocked those players. And against Portugal, I think Switzerland have all these chances, because when Switzerland are not favourite and when they're playing against team that's supposed to be bigger, that's generally where they can, when they're not expected to, that's where the magic happen. And because of it, and also because of this unluck they had against Serbia, I think they might surprise a lot of people, and actually, yeah, why not at least push the Portuguese team into the prolongation. So it's a big game. It's going to be interesting, and also because in Switzerland the immigration of Portuguese people in Switzerland is quite big, so it's kind of not like a derby, but something that will be looked differently in Switzerland.
And Joe, obviously Portugal have looked pretty decent so far in the tournament. Bruno Fernandes probably been their star player. Do you give Switzerland a chance?
Well, I think obviously Portugal, everyone's scoring goals, which is not the usual thing for Portugal. It's not just Ronaldo for once. He's only got a penalty goal. So, I mean, Bruno Fernandes, he's got 2 goals. Portugal are scoring goals. I think that Switzerland can't be overlooked. They've got Granit Xhaka, who's been one of the most informed midfielders in the world this season. Don't overlook Switzerland. I think it could be one of the tightest games of this round of 16.
Yeah, and just going back to when we had our studio guest, Jamie, and he was kind of, really defending Gareth Southgate, and we've been sat here on the sofa over the past few weeks, and a few people have come out, myself, I will admit it, have come out and kind of, criticised Southgate and his England reign to an extent. Obviously, you can praise him for his achievements. agree with Jamie in the sense of, Southgate deserves all the credit he gets? Because, I've been a big supporter. I sat on this sofa last week and I went, after this World Cup, I'd love Poch to come in. Do you agree with Jamie?
Well, I think that you can look at either side. Pochettino, he wouldn't be a bad manager to have, obviously. He's a good manager. But Gareth Southgate, I think, my opinion, has completely changed him at this World Cup because he's doing everything he needs to do. We're winning games like we haven't done before. You think back to 2014, out in the group stage. 2010, we're not there. We're out to Germany. I mean, we are winning games. We're getting to semis, finals, and I feel like we're taking it a bit for granted. We are past Senegal, and like you said at the start, we don't even seem to be that bothered. We were looking at France. Gary Lineker was talking last night. Why we start in Kyle Walker? We should be resting him for France. We were already through in our heads, and I think all of it is testament to Gareth Southgate, and I think he's doing a wonderful job, and I would like to see him stay if he can take us to the final of this tournament.
It's quite interesting because for the last major tournament, so the Euros, Southgate chose like a more defensive approach, and people were criticizing him. And he went to the final, so we were thinking for this World Cup he would go again for this same approach, but he chose to go for something more proactive and offensive. So yeah, he was. I think he should stay at the end because he's doing quite a good job with the national team.
Okay, so that is it for today. Thanks go again to our special guests Nathan Ridley and Jamie Holland, and as well to our guests in the studio.
This podcast was produced and presented by sports journalism students at the University of Central Lancashire in Preston. If you liked it, you can follow us on Spotify and share it with your friends. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.